to see that as we're going along. Okay, let's do it. So we're going to be talking about mastering Scrivener mastering nonfiction in Scrivener. Research, outline, and write your book. And like I said earlier, I am excited to share this topic. You know, having dabbled a little bit here, this stuff, I'm really looking forward to kind of going a little bit deeper with you guys. Let's go ahead and get started here. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Oliver Evanson, and I'm a writer, editor, and Scrivener mentor and writing mentor, largely thanks to this amazing software. And for the better part of 15 years, I have used Scrivener to improve my own writing and editing skills, and I'm eager to teach you guys these skills in my position as the outreach specialist for Literature and Latte, the creators of Scrivener and Scapple. Now, I absolutely love connecting with like-minded writers like myself. So if you'd like to connect with me, send me an email, or better yet, join my email list. I frequently send out valuable tips and techniques to help you become a better writer, and all subscribers will receive a free copy of my free starter novel template. I'll probably gonna have to make one for nonfiction people, for nonfiction users too, because the novel one is more, for fiction, right? It's a novel, right? But still useful, still a great tool. If you'd like to have access to that, check that out. And of course, if you'd like to see what I'm working on, this is new, okay? I'm excited about this, guys. If you'd like to see what books I've been writing in Scrivener, you can actually subscribe to my author website on Substack right now at oliverevanson.substack.com. I've got a lot of content up there already, and new content's coming up every week. Really excited to share that stuff with you, so check it out. It's stuff I've been working on in Scrivener, and it's gonna be awesome. Okay, well, let's dive right along here, and I'll get those links to you guys at the end in case you want them. Let's talk schedule for a minute here. Let me also scroll down in the chat so I can see what's recent here too. Oh, thank you so much for dropping those in there, Ruth. I appreciate that. I'll go ahead and also just drop this guy right here while I'm thinking about it. Boom. Oops. Paste. Boom. There you go. So schedule, introduction. Of course, we're going to do a quick introduction where we kind of just go over everything to get everything together. After that, we'll move into our training. We'll go over the bulk of what we're going to discuss today, which will take up most of our time. Okay. I'm aiming for about an hour worth of content, but sometimes we go a little under, sometimes we go a little over. It just depends on the day. Okay. We'll see how it goes today. We'll talk about some free resources there at the end, the upcoming events for this week, particularly the one on Wednesday. And then we'll go over a Q&A, probably about 15 to 20 minutes there at the end, where we'll kind of discuss everything together. Okay. Now there's nothing, as many of you who have been to my webinars know, that I hate just, coming to a live event like a webinar or something and have to wait 45 minutes before the presenter finally gets to his training, if he even gets to it at all, right? But that's why I like to set very clear expectations for what I promise or what you should expect to learn in today's session. Excuse me, I forgot my water. So there are 3 skills I expect you to learn today. First off, I promise to teach you how to set up and use the nonfiction template to get your book started off right, okay? How to outline and structure an informational nonfiction book in Scrivener, and that may be more applicable to some than to others, but still useful information. And finally, we're going to look at importing your research into Scrivener so you can keep your files and research organized and accessible. And by the conclusion of this presentation, you should be confident to use Scrivener to get started writing your nonfiction book, or at the very least, feeling comfortable in how you organize your materials and use these excellent tools. Okay, so let's begin. Where do we start? Well, we're going to start here. When beginning a new project in Scrivener, the first step is to choose a template and set up your project, okay? Now, as many of you know, Scrivener has a variety of templates available for different genres, including nonfiction books. And these templates are designed to help you get started with your project, and they can easily be customized according to your personal preferences. Now, I do recommend beginning with Scrivener's default nonfiction template and then kind of gradually customizing it until you develop something that's really uniquely your own. That's my process. I absolutely love that. I love that I can start from kind of something really simple and then gradually change that into something that's really mine. I know how to use it, I know what it is. Yeah, that's something I just love about Scrivener, okay? Now, let's see here. With that in mind, you might take a minute and think about what are some things you might do, or how do I want to put it? What are some things you might want in this template, okay, that that apply specifically to your niche, right? So if you're writing a biography, what kind of folders and subsections and things do you want specific to that to biographies, right? Try to look at whatever genre, whatever you're writing in, and try to identify specific things that are similar, right? Ideally, things that you are easily repeatable that you would use again and from book to book to book to book, right? That's assuming, of course, you're writing multiple nonfiction books. Okay. Now, after titling and saving your new Scrivener project, we're going to shift focus to actually our writing plans itself. Now, nonfiction typically falls into two main categories, and I'm sure that can be debated, but let's talk about it. We're looking at informational nonfiction and narrative nonfiction, and each has its own array of subgenres. And this is really us just trying to narrow down and say, okay, where do we fit in the terms of like the marketing scheme? What is my book exactly, right? It also kind of helps us as the writer kind of identify, hey, what am I actually working on? What type of story am I trying to tell? What type of book am I trying to write? So given the scope, of course, we can't cover everything about all these genres and topics in one webinar. So hopefully, today's session, we're going to concentrate mostly on informational nonfiction, specifically business and self-help books, mainly because that's where I have a little bit more expertise. But all the tools that I'm going to cover today is going to be applicable to everyone, okay? Now, if you're working on narrative nonfiction, such as memoirs, autobiographies, biographies, don't worry. Like I said, these concepts will be easily applied to those subgenres as well. And I'll probably also create a separate presentation in the future that's kind of dedicated more to narrative nonfiction, so we can kind of see it through that lens. I like that. I actually had to cut down this presentation. Originally, it did have some of that in it, and so I'll probably just switch things around in the future and focus on that next time. Okay, well, let's see here. Before we dive into this next slide and talk about outlining and structuring your book, I want to take a minute. Let's jump out of the presentation and let's take a peek at the nonfiction template, what it looks like, how we would set it up, how we would get going there. So I'm going to close this out for a second, and we're going to change our share from the desktop 3 here to desktop 1. There we go. And let's get rolling here. I'm going to get this pulled over real quick. Okay, so let's open up Scrivener. That takes us to our project templates, right? And as you recall, I mentioned earlier, we have a ton of different templates available here. And you can click all to see all of them at once, including ones that are of your own creation, like my starter novel template right here, right? But we can look at the blank. We have fiction. We have different categories we can look at them in. And specifically today, we're looking at nonfiction. You'll notice already we have a ton of different nonfiction options available here. Now, if you're familiar with what LaTeX is, you certainly could use LaTeX. It's a special type of publishing, almost like a code kind of language that you can use to get some really cool results in Scrivener. So if you're familiar with that, or if you'd like to learn about that, you can definitely use that one. But for most people, the general nonfiction right here is going to be what you want. Unless you're writing a paper, right, an APA style or MLA style or Chicago style, right? That's more academic related. I think most of us are probably going to be right here in the general nonfiction today. So we'll go ahead and click create. And we're going to give it a name. And the beauty of Scrivener is that we don't have to know the exact title of what we're working on. We can just give it a general name of whatever we're working on. And we might just call this the self-help book. I don't know. We'll just keep it simple, right? So I'm just decided today, I want to write a self-help book. But where do I even begin, right? Let's go ahead and click create here. Okay, there we go. It opens up. We have our general nonfiction section here. It's going to have this little nonfiction format. Sorry. Yes. And there we have the option here, right, to go ahead and start modifying our project, making it our own. And the first thing I always do is I read through this once, okay, and then I go ahead and delete it, right? Because I can go ahead and get anything that's already here can easily be recreated by creating this project from this template again, right? So anything I don't need that I'm not going to, it's just, to me, it's just clutter. I just want to get it out of here. So I might read through this once, or maybe not even at all if I don't feel like I need it, right? Go ahead and just move that into the trash. For now, we'll put that away. So we look at my manuscript. I have a foreword, right? I have a chapter. I have a section. That's all fine. We can keep those there. We'll close up the manuscript. Front matter, back matter, those could actually, they could stay there. They could go somewhere else. I personally like to have a really clean, minimalist looking binder. So usually what I'll do is I'll take the front, back matter, notes, ideas, everything. I will drop those in my research folder. And here's a manuscript example. I might look through that once to see, hey, this is what it might look like. Look, we have like a a title page. We have some contents, right? A foreword here, chapter 1, etc. And there's our foreword, right? So kind of it gives us an idea of what it might look like. The front matters right here, right, for our manuscript. That's the title page we're looking at. The contents. We can put all those things in there. So that just kind of gives us an idea of how we might use some of these tools in Scrivener to get this nice looking result here. So there we go. We'll go ahead and close that up. And we'll actually go ahead and delete this because I don't need that. Notes is good. Ideas is good. And we'll close that up. And look, there we go. Now we have a very clean, simple interface. Our 3 main folders, our manuscript folder, our research folder, and our trash folder. Ready to roll, ready to go. Okay, there we go here. Okay, so we have, let me see if I can find this. Well, we got that set up. That's looking good. Yep, okay. General name and save. Yep, we set up our project. We got we used the general nonfiction template. We named and saved it, and we even kind of cleaned up the binder there, so it kind of looks like our own. Sorry, I just want to go through my notes to make sure I hadn't missed anything from this specific slide here. Okay. So our next step here. Let's jump back into our presentation. Let's talk about outlining and structuring our book. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and make this big again. I'm going to share my other screen. There we go. Okay, let's dive right in here. So outlining and structuring your book in Scrivener. So let's assume today that we're writing a self-help book, right? And that you're drawing from your own experience and research to provide valuable insights and actionable advice for your readers. Now, your goal, right, is to guide readers through personal growth, helping them overcome challenges to achieve their goals. Now, we're going to kind of look at what I believe is the fundamental structure of a self-help book. Now, bear in mind that all these steps and things I put in here, I've placed them in an order that kind of makes sense to me. So if it doesn't make sense to you, that's okay. What I love about Scrivener is I can easily structure and restructure what I'm working on and kind of stay at the same time still stay true. And the same is true for any nonfiction book as well. Okay. So first off, you could identify the specific problem that your book will solve for your reader. Right? So remember, the whole goal of a self-help book is to help readers solve a problem that exists in their lives. And it might be something you're struggling with yourself. This is where I find myself a lot of times. There's a lot of problems I have. And so I'm like, hey, if I can solve this for myself, maybe I can help someone else too. And oftentimes that's what I do with these webinars too. It's like, hey, this was a problem for me. I want to share it with you so you guys know how to deal with this, how to fix this problem, so it's not a problem for you too. And it could be a problem that you hope to solve in the process of writing the book itself, right? Or it may be a problem that you have already solved in your life, and you just simply have a great deal of experience with it, and you want to share it with others, right? Next, you could identify your audience, right? Consider what type of people are experiencing the problem you're going to write about. Are they young professionals, parents, students, maybe retirees? It could be anyone. Just think about who is experiencing this problem. How can you help them overcome this issue and improve their lives, right? You might consider what their likes are, what their dislikes and their interests. What challenges do they face on a daily basis? Understanding these aspects will allow you to tailor your message effectively and connect with them on a deeper level. Now, after identifying your problem and your audience, it's a good idea to research and provide the history of it. Use personal examples from your own life to make it more relatable. I think this is where it gets a little bit more narrative than informational. I see a lot of that in self-help books nowadays, where it's not just like stating facts and giving information. We're hearing stories, from people's personal lives, kind of helping us understand, oh, that's how this can help solve my problem, right? Or help even establish the history of the problem that we're experiencing, because we can relate to stories as human beings, right? Now, this will establish solid groundwork, allowing you to explain why it's an issue and why there's been no satisfactory solution has existed until now. So the stronger your foundation here, the more likely you'll convince readers that they need your specific expertise to resolve their problem, right? Now, an essential part of providing the history of your problem is also researching your competition. And that may seem like, I don't know, a little silly to some people, but it's important. Are you adding value to the topic in question? That's a big question for me. It's not just about understanding what your competition is doing and trying to beat them. That's not how I see it. I see it to say, hey, what have people talked about this topic? Has it been discussed? If I'm writing a biography, maybe for example, about someone, how many people have written a similar biography about this person, right? Or this, or whatever the case may be. What value can I add to the conversation, right? And so, does your viewpoint offer something new or unique? I think honestly, this is one of the most challenging things because we have so many people with so many voices. Sometimes we can feel like we're going to get lost, or we do get lost in the shuffle with so many people talking. And often we may even think, "Hey, I have this really great, groundbreaking idea," only to discover that it has been like extensively talked to death in numerous other books. And you know what? That's okay. That's why you want to do that research. That's why you want to find out what other people have written on the topic rather than just ignoring it. You might find that you have a really cool and neat, fresh perspective to add. And if you do, that's great. And if not, you may want to consider looking at something else. That's okay too. Okay. Now it's time to introduce some compelling facts. Honesty and authenticity are paramount if you want to stand out from the crowd. And that's actually really true. I found that, most of my messages when I'm trying to share with people, a lot of it comes just from being authentic, right? This is stuff that I have done that really works for me. And providing strong evidence and data that demonstrate your reliability as a narrator and prove your experience and qualifications addressing the problem. Drawing conclusions and telling stories that directly relate to the facts and data will enhance your authority and really show readers that your book is worth their time. Okay. Now, of course, we get to the end, right, of the problem, right? Well, we talked about the history of the problem. We talked about what it is. We've identified what it is. We've identified who's it's for, right? But what is our solution, right? And that's kind of what we're getting at is, how are you going to provide a solution or an action plan to help your readers overcome the issue highlighted in your book, right? So the implementation of this action plan can vary. You could build up to a comprehensive solution at the book's conclusion, or you could structure your chapters to provide like specific action plans at the end of each chapter or section. It really depends on what works for you, and that's actually why I like Scrivener, is because you can use Scrivener to outline it and structure your nonfiction book in any way you want, right? And then kind of decide, hey, how am I going to distribute this solution or, an action plan, as the case may be, throughout the story, right? Or throughout the novel, okay? Or not, throughout the book. You can see I talk about novels a lot. Okay. Looking good. So we'll if anyone's interested in any of those questions and things I added, I'll probably copy those and paste them into our nonfiction projects. You can kind of see that. Maybe we'll look at making a little bit of a structure and outline of that in just a second. Before we do, though, I want to go to our next slide here and talk about some Scrivener tools for importing research and things into today. And then we'll look at the tools, we'll look at the outlining, we'll try to put it all together here in just a second. So importing research and sources into your Scrivener project is essential for supporting your arguments and providing evidence that backs up your claims. So you can import research documents, as we know, images, audio files, videos, movies, and all sorts of great stuff can be put directly into your research folder within Scrivener. So once you start using Scrivener, how do we keep it all organized and accessible? It's great that we can add this all in, but if we're not careful, we can add so much in and it gets lost in the shuffle. Now, thankfully, Scrivener has several excellent tools that can help you organize your research, and today we're going to explore 4 of them. We're going to look at the binder here. Okay. We're going to look at the outliner, we're going to look at collections, and we're going to look at keywords. Now, the binder is the go-to tool for me for organizing and managing your project structure, particularly your research. It functions as that virtual 3-ring binder that holds all your project's documents, folders, and files. And so it's really critical that we really spend time in here making sure that our binder is clean, easy to read, well organized. It makes searching so much easier. It's worth the effort to put a little thought into that. The outliner view is kind of like, I like to think of it as an enhanced view of the binder. It allows me to view more additional metadata for every part of my book. Now I can add columns to here. I can display specific details for each document in the outline, such as word count or status. I can even go and create my own custom metadata, which, as I've talked about in the past, where I can get into real specific things that I've made and that I want to track. Now, collections allows you to group together different documents from various parts of your book into one place for easier access and editing. And there's a lot of fun things you can do with collections. But the main thing is you can use collections to create lists of research documents, references, or any other materials that you really need to keep close at hand. And you want to keep them like similarly put together, right? Where that's like same documents around same topics are all tied together, right? Keywords, another great way, and that's a great tool to use with collection as well. If we have time, we'll look at that, where you can assign a specific document. You can assign a specific color and tag to a specific document that makes it a lot more searchable and also makes it easier to collect them together into collections. So that's a great tool as well. So creating keywords for specific research topics and use them to find all the material, related material efficiently, okay? Okay, so before we dive in here, I'm gonna close this out for a second, and we jump into here. I want to hear from you guys a little bit. Let me pull up the chat. Tell me, guys, what tools do you typically use to keep your research organized in Scrivener? I'd like to hear that. Like, or do you have any kind of unique method or something you just say, hey, this has really worked for me? I'd like to hear from you guys. So drop me a line in the chat. Let me know what's going on with that. I'd like to hear from you about that. Let's see. So Tony says I use Zotero. Okay, Zotero, and that's an external bibliography manager or citation manager, right? Yep, that's a good one. Oh, it looks like I got the FaceTime things turned on. Labels help visually break up categories into easy groups. That's good. No tools, just files. Okay. Let's see here. Zachary says, I have a folder for each chapter, then documents within that. I wish there were a clearer level of hierarchy so I could use one kind of folder for another kind, for a chapter, another for a subchapter, another for small sections. Ooh, you know, Zachary, that is an interesting thought there. There actually is kind of a way around that, and I kind of do that. I'll probably look at that today as we're looking at the binder. It has to do with icons, in case you're wondering. I do definitely change icons to make things look, to differentiate between things, right? Kathleen says they use a combination of Zotero, Notion, and documents. Would love to know how to cite with Zotero on Scrivener. Okay, that's good. I love using icons. Yes, Kathy, you're right. Bookmarks to cross-link documents. Joshua says, I haven't worked with many big features. Let's see. Oh, I just lost it. Big features other than having different pages for different ideas. I then move things around. For actual research, I use Zotero extensively, and one of my biggest pain points with Scrivener has been the lack of Zotero integration. Interesting. I'm hearing a lot about Zotero, and see, I don't use Zotero a lot because I don't do a lot of referencing, things like that. I use Scrivener and DevonThink for links to research images. So I might have to look into that a bit more, guys, because I'm interested. I'm interested. Mostly, I just keep all my references and links and things in like a file or folder directly in Scrivener. But I know that a lot of people do love those citation managers, which makes it really, really nice. We do have simple citation manager. What do you call it? Options. Let's see here. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Let me just show you this real quick. So like we can come in here, I think it's settings and citation. So we can set one up, and I think Zotero can be set up in it, but all it really does is it's a little keyboard shortcut. You use that and it'll open up the app for you, really. So it doesn't do anything really special. It's no different than just going into the Finder or into your start menu and saying, hey, opening this app. It just makes it a little bit quicker and easier to get to that. Ivan says, Oliver was talking about Zotero after I asked about importing full book or chapter PDFs. Okay, so you want to learn how to import a full book or chapter PDFs. Okay, so PDF files are going to be a bit tricky to import. You'll need to, you can import them in and view them, but you can't edit them there, Ivan. That's one thing to consider. Okay, so why don't you throw that one in the Q&A? I'll see if I can demonstrate that one towards the end. But yeah, that's definitely, we're going to look at importing research and stuff like that. So if it's not a PDF, if it's a Word file or a rich text file, those come in really nicely. You can drop them in and Scrivener, it'll be fully editable, and you'll be able to work on them directly in Scrivener here. Let's see here. Okay, great. Well, it looks like we got a nice little conversation going on with you guys in there. I'm going to let you guys keep working on that. I'm going to start diving in here to some of our content. So let's talk about here. First off, I'm going to take all this lovely information here, and we're just going to stick it into a document here. So I'm going to go to notes, and we're going to call this outlining a self-help book. Okay. And these are some notes that I just shared with you guys. We'll paste it in my style there. So identify the specific problem, solve reader. That's step 1, right? And then we have research the history of it. I'm just cutting out some of this stuff. Let's look at, where is that? All my questions I had. Okay, there they are. Okay, yes. When we're considering the audience. So if you want these things here, I'm just going to put them out so you guys can see them. Some of the questions that may prove helpful for you. And of course, Scrivener has some great 1, 2, and 3. There we go, looking good. Provide a history of it. I don't know if I had any questions down here too. I don't, but we'll go with that. So, what's the problem? And what's the solution? Action plan, right? And so we could come through, notes, outline this out, kind of think about it. We could even come up here and start creating a structure and saying, okay, maybe part 1, and we could say this is identifying, or we could say, actually, no, we're going to do it as the history of the problem. And what else do we talk about? Who's the audience? Yeah, doesn't really relate to, I guess we could, all that's part of the history of the problem, part 1. And then I'm just going to do 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. Okay, we'll look at that. Part 2. And of course, the solution or action plan, right? Now, obviously, I probably wouldn't have a part 1, part 2 structure like this. This would be more for me in the beginning, just kind of get my bearings. What's the history of the problem? Like, what is the problem? I might even come in here and say, what is the problem? Right, push that inside there. I even talk about the audience a little bit. Who struggles with this problem? Right. And then I had one more thing, but I forgot. Anyway, we could create our own little hierarchical structure here. The main thing here is that we give really clear names for everything that we do here, so we know exactly where we're going. If I don't know what to do with this, I'm going to go ahead and move it to trash so I don't have it in there. That has a section. We're going to go ahead and throw that out there. And so we could come through and kind of build out our structure. Now, this would not be my final structure, right? This would just be something to get me started, something to get the ball rolling, to kind of put me in the right mind, headspace, in the right place. And I'd probably restructure and structure this again and again and again until I got it right where I want it to be. Oh, I wanted to talk about audience, right? I think we have that. Already have that. Who struggles with this problem? Already got it there. So what is the problem? Who struggles with the problem? Solutions. Well, maybe do like failed solutions, poor solutions. Solutions kind of a thing, right? Throw those in there. Maybe what's different, why, what's different about my solution, right? Or something like that, So a lot of this is very abstract. It really depends on what you're working on, what you're going to do there. But you can see we come here, we make a nice structure we can work with, something that is strong enough that it kind of gets us started and gets us pointing in the right direction, but also loose enough and flexible enough that we can easily adapt it, change it as we go throughout the whole thing. And we throw our notes in here. We have those things available to us. Yeah, it's gonna come along really, really well. So that's kind of using the binder a little bit. Now I know Ivan was Ivan or someone was asking me about. Let me see. Changing. Oh, I can't find who it was now. But regardless, about I am talking about how to differentiate parts and chapters and scenes and sections and things like that. How do we go about making those a little bit easier to see? Because as it stands right now, if I open these up, and let's say I even had folders upon folders upon folders inside each of these, it would get pretty confusing pretty quickly, right? Right? If I'm doing something like this. And I feel like with it, with a novel or something, you can get some really kind of crazy looking structures, but at the same time, it's usually pretty simple. But when I'm writing a self-help book or any sort of nonfiction book, the structure can kind of evolve and change a little bit. Maybe there are some definitely really good structures out there, but when I'm first writing things out, I kind of mess around with it. I definitely have a lot of different things going on. Maybe that's not so traditional to what I'm normally doing. And so I would want to probably come in here and change some icons. And I might even go ahead and select both of them at the same time by holding down my controller or my command key here. And we'll go to change icon. And personally, I like these books, so I'll do like maybe an orange book here. And that'll be for the parts. And maybe for the sections inside those, we might come in here and change the icon again. We could do another book. We could do even like just unticked things like this. I kind of like that. And then inside here, we could change the icon to something else. Let's do a note. So, and that way we could kind of come through and adjust those and make them look a little bit different so they don't look the same, right? And if this is something you're doing a lot of, right, maybe, this kind of goes back to the discussion of kind of making this template your own. I could actually create these into into templates. And so it's not currently set up in this project. So what I would have to do is actually have to come down here to my research folder or thereabouts. Actually, you know what? Let's do it outside of the research folder. We'll call this the template sheets. Looks like it got pushed in there anyway. We'll push it out. There we go, template sheets. And then we need to go to our project settings here and actually assign that. So we'll go to special folders. There is no template folder set. We'll look for it. There it is. If you have a folder called template sheets, it's going to automatically pull that up for you. Okay, so click that there. And there we go. Now we have some templates. What we could do is we could literally just take these, right? Drag and drop them into our template sheets like so. And then I could create them from scratch. And we might, let's go ahead. Oh, where is that? Let's go add new from template part 1, right? And there we go. We have that. And so that way you could kind of set those up once. And if you're writing multiple self-help books or multiple memoirs, or as the case may be, whatever you're writing, you can kind of automate that a little bit. So you can set the icons as you like them, and then have it all available to do again and again and again and again. You don't have to redo that work every single time. So that's a little handy to know. Okay, let's see here. Looking good. Good. Okay. Let's dive into our research and writing. So importing things into Scrivener. I know there was a question about that. How do I bring in my work and PDF files and things like that? So the only bad thing about a PDF file is if you're planning to edit that PDF file, you're going to have problems, right? Because Scrivener is not going to pull in something that's editable. It's going to be a regular PDF file, and you can't edit PDFs in Scrivener. You can review them, right? You can have them as research and view them in the editor, but you won't be able to actually make any changes to them. You could open them in an external editor and change them in an external editor and things like that. But to me, that seems a bit much. I'd only do that as a last resort, right? Ideally, I'd want to convert that PDF into some sort of editable type format, like a Word document or a rich text file. But let's take a look at it real quick and see what we're going to do here. So we'll go ahead and open up here and get to our demo files here so we can see this. So here's PDF, so I can demonstrate that for you guys. If I brought in a sample PDF file like so, you'll notice I can't put it in my manuscript folder. It's a media file, technically, right? It's not technically a text file, a text document, so it can't be imported in there, but it can be brought into my research folder. Now, when I'm bringing something in, it's really important that I have a space for it. So I'll probably want this, we'll say in, we'll put it in ideas. And ideally, this should have a good name too, right? We'll call this my idea folder or something. Not idea folder, idea PDF. Why not? Let's go with it. Drop it in there. Okay. But you know, this is a simple PDF file. A simple PDF file, right? And so you can see here, I can copy text from it. Oops, maybe. I think I have to use the keyboard shortcut for that. And I could then paste that in here like so, but I can't actually edit this thing. I can't delete anything. I can't change it. It's just for viewing only, right? And you can see it's there at the bottom too. So that's one thing to keep in mind, Ivan, when you're bringing in a PDF file, is that you won't be able to change it. You could potentially copy it over and put it somewhere else, so if you really wanted to. But ideally, you'd want to switch that format into, let's see here, into some type of rich text file or a Microsoft Word format of some kind. Okay, there we go, like something like this, right? Microsoft document, right? Because when I bring something like that in, it comes in really nicely. You can see there it is right there. I just drag and drop it in, and voila, there it is. It's fully editable. I can delete things. I can split it up into different sections like so, and we could even split the selection as title, all the way around here to do all that fun stuff. Super handy, and just a lot better than bringing in a PDF file. But if you just want to reference it, PDFs are great, right? You can have those right available to you. You can just drop them in. You can have them viewed side by side in the editor, like so. Simple PDF file on the bottom, and what I'm working on the top, right? Okay, and that's, if you're wondering how to do split that editor, it's right here at the top right corner of my editor. I can just click that button. If I hold down, is it the Option key or the Option or Alt key? I can even split the orientation to a vertical view versus a horizontal view. Okay, so just be aware of that. Kind of cool. Okay, so looking good so far. But let's talk a little bit more about. Let's look at the outliner next. Okay, so if we go to our outliner view, the easiest way to get there is to either click this button right here in the top corner of the group mode here, or go to View Outline. Okay, you'll see there's a keyboard shortcut attached to it. If you're using a Mac, it's going to be Command 3. If you're using a PC, it's going to be Control 3. Okay, so there we go, looking good there. And you can see already we get just a little bit more information about what's going on in our binder here. Okay, so it's kind of similar. Oftentimes I'll even just turn off, I'll hide my binder, I'll just have this guy opened up, and maybe even I'll come here to the bottom right corner, I'll center this up so it's not like too far off to the side. You can see already I've got a nice view of everything. I've got labels, I've got statuses, I've got section types, I've got total targets, total progress, etc., all available to me. And of course, if I want more, there are some more options here. And if I want even more than that, right, I can go in here into my custom metadata here. I can make even more, add even more information in here if I wanted to. Now, today's presentation isn't about custom metadata, but it's something you can definitely do. If you want to see that, you can check out some of my earlier presentations. But right now we have the title and synopsis turned on. So if I click inside here and I hit return, I can type all about the forward, what it's about. Maybe I'm going to have someone else write the forward. Maybe I'm not going to be the one that actually writes it. So it could be written by my close friend and colleague. I don't know, John or something, you know, right? You could put any sort of information about it and kind of summarize what they wrote there, right? We could have our, and we can do that for any of these. Anytime I hit return with the synopsis turned on for titles, it allows me to add it in. Like so, and you can see when I click it on there, it shows up in my index card over here in the inspector too. And I absolutely love that. Now, if I don't want to see all these synopses, it's really easy to turn off too. I can come over here, turn off the synopsis, and it kind of just looks like the binder view without that synopsis there. But the point is here, you have options. Like typically, I don't really need to know what the section type is or what the hierarchy that Scrivener sees things are right now, because I'm not concerned so much about structure. I'm more concerned about, seeing, how am I gonna, uh, I'm not concerned about how Scrivener is going to send it out of Scrivener. I'm more concerned about what makes sense to me as the writer. Okay, so I'll probably come up here, I can drag things up. I can move things around in the binder like so. Could probably drag the forward there. I could come right click, add new from template part 2, right? I got put in right there. So I got stuck in there. So we'll push that out and then we'll close that up and see. I could come here and add these documents inside of part 2 here if I wanted, right? Can I clean up the structure? I like this a little bit more in the outliner because I can really see the binder like clearly. It's like I'm really focused in on it. And I can also get more information about what's going on here. I could assign labels, right? I can even go so far as to see what keywords and things have been assigned here as well. There's nothing right now, right? But I could even come here, easily select all these and say, okay, statuses. Let's look at this. They are all to do. They all have work to be done that need to be worked on. Same thing with my labels. Maybe part 1 is all red. Of course, it would be better if these labels actually have real names. Right click, label red. We'll do orange. Why not? And then we'll do this one as green. Come here and assign all those green. Like so. Boom. There we go. And see how easy it is to just quickly come in here and change statuses and change labels and adjust things in here. It's just so nice to have this view where I can literally see everything. Oh, sorry, guys. I hit a button on my headset. There. And it opened up Apple Music. Okay, so really quickly, I can get a nice looking structure in here, looking really good. I can set labels. I can set status. I can look at my targets. I can even turn off targets. Right now, I'm not using targets. I'm using progress. I do want my content centered. Maybe included compile might be a good thing. Maybe there's some things I've decided I don't want to be included. So the sample document here, chapter 2, right? Those don't have to be included. That's a quick way to do it directly in the outliner. See if there's anything else. I can look at my total word count. That might be nice. Yeah, that's good. And I can even add numbers in here to make it a little bit more clear what I'm working on. So this is 1, 2, and 3, right? 2, 3.1, etc. So that's kind of handy. Sometimes I find it a bit confusing because it's based on like the actual order of the binder, right? So technically this is part 1, right? But because the forward is there, it's not showing up as part 1. What I might do, open up my binder if that's bugging me. I can actually drag this into my front matter here. Maybe put it in right there. Have that part as one of these formats here, right? So it's not directly in the binder. And then when I come back to my outliner view, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And I could even probably come in through and say, hey, I don't actually need to know this is part 1 and this is part 2. I can know that based on the order they are in the binder, and that see how that looks a little bit better now. We have 1, history of the problem. 1.1, what's the problem? 1.2, 1.3. And then 2, solution or action plan. What's different about my solution, etc., all the way down. And so I can really create a nice, crisp, clean, easy to use structure. And once again, I'd like to remind you, it doesn't have to be the final structure. It's something that you could just set up and say, hey, okay, what makes sense to me right now? So I can actually get some writing done. So I'm actually focusing on what I'm trying to do and just kind of get the information where it needs to be. And then I can kind of come back and reorganize and move things around and say, okay, that didn't work there. That didn't work there. And I might even just come in here and say, hey, you know what? I want to talk about some stories I've had related to this problem. Just maybe some narratives, right? So stories about the problem. Specific problems I've faced. Poor outcomes. I don't know. I can think of these things are just kind of popping in my head. But you see, as our hierarchical structure comes down even more, it does get a little bit more complicated. We got 1.3.1, 2, 3, right? So sometimes those numbers can be a bit much for some people. Sometimes they aren't. So it just depends. It's going to be a matter of perspective, what makes more sense for you. Personally, I think I kind of like it turned off because I already know, I can kind of see it visually there, how things are structured and how things look. So just a matter of preference there. Let's see if there's anything specifically I want to talk about in the outliner here that I didn't touch on. No, I think we're good. I think we're good. So you can kind of mess around with that. Like I said, there's a lot of great tools in here. You can kind of check them out and see what they look like. This is the created date. This is the modified date. I'm going to let you know when you created it. When was the last time you adjusted or changed it, right? A lot of great, useful tools here available for you. Okay. I'm going to jump back in the notes here for a second. So Ivan's asking, what's the difference between notes and ideas? I don't know if I'm just looking through the chat now to see if there's anything I missed here. Notes and ideas. So really, the only difference here, just from a purely Scrivener perspective, like there's really nothing different here. I mean, you have a different icon and you have a different title. Okay, and the fact that I called this one notes and this one ideas, it's just a matter of organization, right? That's what it really comes down to. I could easily come here, rename this ideas, right? I could change the icon to a light bulb and voila, it's the same thing. It's essentially a folder, right? And by giving it a specific icon that makes it easier to identify or, to differentiate it from another folder. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier about, coming here and changing icons and, looking at these a little bit differently so we can kind of see that they are, in fact, while they are actually all folders and documents, we can kind of look at them differently and differentiate one folder from another relatively easily, right? Just by changing an icon, right? So hopefully that answers your question there, Ivan. Let's see here. Thank you, Ruth. It looks like Ruth got to it too. Okay. Okay, looking. Man, it's got some great conversation going on here in the chat, guys. This is great. Okay, Ivan says, yeah, but how do you use ideas and notes folders differently? Like, what are you putting in each folder? So, okay, that's going to be largely up to you, Ivan. And I think that's the challenge here. Like, in this specific template, the creator of this template said, hey, I want a different folder for notes, and I want a different folder for ideas, right? So ideas would probably, for me, if I were using this template myself, I would probably just have notes about, okay, potential. Maybe if I don't even know what I'm writing about, right? Or maybe I don't even. I want to write a self-help book about writing, for example. So, what problems do I face as a writer, right? So I might even just that's a question I might ask myself. That's a bit long for a title. So, the problems, problems for writers, right? So if I, what are some other things? Challenge, basically, hopefully, I'm trying to think of a good way to put this, but basically just ideas related to what I'm working on, right? Not fully formed out yet, just some thoughts, almost like notes, right? Almost like notes, but they're not fully formed thoughts. Whereas notes, I'm thinking more like, I've come up with some ideas. Maybe I've listed out some problems down here, right? But for notes, I might say, hey, the problem. So give me an example, guys. What are some problems you face as a writer? Give me an example. Like, let's see here. I might face a problem with writing a scene, right? What is a scene? Kind of a thing. If I'm a fantasy writer, I might say, world building, right? How do I build a world, right? World building, right? And so these are, kind of, problems I might have. I might not go into them in depth, but up here I might say, oh, I took some notes. I might have some notes on scene writing tips, right? Or I might have some notes on world building, right? Tips. Or if I'm working on a nonfiction problem, let's see here. Let's do ideas for personal anecdotes. Right? So personal stories and things, so maybe when, fear of sharing my work with others. That held me back. And that's a challenge, I guess, a problem. I I have harbored it with, I've struggled with my whole life. And I think a lot of writers do. It's like we're so afraid of what people will say about our writing and what we're doing, and that negative feedback, right? That we don't ever share anything with anyone. I actually hear about that a lot, believe it or not, from a lot of writers who just, they kind of write for themselves, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with writing for yourself, but some of them I know would like to share their work, but they're too timid, too afraid to. And so maybe hopefully me sharing some of my experiences with that and saying, hey, this is kind of how I overcame that hurdle of like, I was afraid to share something with them. And yes, you're going to receive good feedback, and yes, you're going to receive bad feedback. It's okay. Not all writing is for everyone, right? And so these are kind of things we kind of differentiate. We can pull out into notes and ideas. And ideally, it's what you make it to be, Ivan. It's really what you make it to be. Whatever works for you. You might not have a notes and ideas folder. You might just have notes and ideas, right? You don't have to differentiate them at all. You could have them together as one folder. You could even delete the ideas portion and just say, hey, it's just notes, and I'm just keeping all this place in one place. It's just a matter of perception. You decide how you want to break this up. And that's kind of the cool thing about Scrivener, is that you get to make that decision. There's no perfect one size fits all for everyone. You get to make up your own, decide your own structure for your research, for your manuscript, for your, even for your trash. Believe it or not, I organize my trash too. I keep all my scraps. I organize them and make sure everything is clean, so that anytime I come back to it, it's not like, oh man, I have to kind of like go through things. I want to keep things organized, neat, easy to find. Okay, Okay, perfect. So looking good there. Okay, Ruth, thank you so much for answering those questions in the chat. It looks like they've got some really good stuff going on there. I'm liking the discussion I'm seeing. Okay, so let's look. We're coming out to the top of the hour here. We talked about the binder. We talked about the outliner. We still have collections and keywords I'd like to talk about, and then we'll open it up for the Q&A for the last like 15 minutes or so. So let me go ahead and grab that here. Oops, undo that, and let's look at our. Yeah, let's look at the collections. Okay, so collections are pretty straightforward. It was one of those tools where I thought, I don't know what this is, I don't know how this works, and I'm not sure why I would use this for a long time. And then once I realized how it was, I'm like, why haven't I been using this? This is great. So there are two types of collections that you can typically do in Scrivener, and I've kind of given them my own names. I call it a static collection, and I call it a dynamic collection. And so the static collection is just like that. It's static. We come here, I push the plus icon and create a new collection. I can give that name whatever I want. Maybe even go so far and say this is ideas, ideas about writing. I'll just do ideas for problems for writers. Okay, we'll say that. Okay, and so then I could come in here. Look at my ideas. Maybe I only have one folder, right? I didn't keep my idea folder. I just have one. And I want to use collections to kind of differentiate some of my notes here. So I could come here and say, okay, problems for writers. There we go. That goes there. Personal anecdotes. If that relates to problems for writings, I could definitely drop that in there, right? And so I can kind of organize things just by a quick drag and drop, right? And by clicking in that collection now, I can see I've collected those two things related to problems for writers, right? And this is nice, right? Because it's very just like drag and drop. It is there or it isn't there, okay? If I want to remove something from here, I can hit the minus button. If I want to add it back in, I have to come and find it and drag and drop it back in. So static collections are great if you don't want to do any heavy lifting. You just want to drag, drop, you're done, okay? And the only things that are going to be there are the things that you actually place inside it. Okay, so there are definitely good situations where that would be useful. Okay, now my personal favorite are dynamic collections. But before we jump into that, it's worth talking about keywords. Okay, because I'm actually going to use a keyword to create my dynamic collection. Now, I could use a label, I could use a status, I could use a lot of different things to create a dynamic collection. But today we're going to focus on keywords. Okay, so if we want to find keywords, where do we find them? We go to the metadata tab over here. And right here is our keywords. Now, specifically, if I add a keyword here, it's going to add it to this document I have selected, ideas for personal anecdotes, right? So I add that in. We could say this has to do with problems for writers, right? Like so. And I created that keyword. It's been assigned to this document. If I go to the outliner, there it is, right there. You can see it. If we want to see the word, not just the color chip, we can uncheck that. And there we go. Now we can see the whole thing, problems for writers, right? I could come here and also add it to this one right here. Okay, we see when I click problems for writers, there's nothing there, right? But if I go here, I can go to show project keywords. And I can drag and drop that right there. And there it is, right? Now, I'm going to go ahead and delete this guy real quick. Okay, and we're going to create a dynamic collection just to kind of see what this would look like. So first off, I'm going to click the search button up here. I'm going to click my spyglass. I'm going to go down. I'm going to search specifically for keywords. Okay, exact phrase is what I want. Okay, make sure it's set to exact phrase. We're going to go to problems for writers. Okay, let's see if that didn't work. Let's try any word. Huh. Oh, that's why. Search manuscript only. We'll undo that. There we go. So it was searching only in the manuscript. So I want to make sure I have the right settings turned off here. So we're searching everywhere now. We're not going to exclude the trash. We're not going to exclude templates. Now, depending on what you're using this what do you call it, this collection for, you may want to exclude some of these things. You may want to focus only on the binder. It's going to be your personal preferences. But for now, I want to include all these things. I'm going to exclude templates. Yeah. And I think everything else we're going to leave the same. There they are right there. Okay. And now I can actually come here and click the search and click Save Search as Collection. This becomes a dynamic collection because now every time I assign the keyword problem for writers, it's going to show up in this collection here. Okay. So there it is, problem for writers. Okay. I can come here. I can even actually see here. Yeah, I can change this color. This is a purplish color. It looks like almost violet. So I'm going to change that so it matches my keyword a little bit better too. There we go. And you can see those two documents are already showing up there. Now, what happens if I add it to this untitled document here? There we go. Now that pops up there. So you can see anywhere I assign this keyword now, those things are going to pop up. Of course, if I didn't want that there, I could come here and remove it like so. And when I do that, it is removed from the collection as well. So this is a great way to use keywords to kind of like tag certain things. Like if you know, like, hey, this specific document relates to this topic, right? I can assign a keyword to it. And it may relate to a bunch of different topics. And that's the beauty, is I could create a bunch of different keywords, right? Lock. Where's some problems? I can even nest these inside here. What do you call it? Stiff dialogue. I don't know. I can nest these inside to make it a little bit more easy to kind of see what's going on. Easier to keep my keywords organized too. And I can actually come through and I say, okay, I can assign these things to other places too, right? Like so. Now they're not going to show up in here because they're not specifically problems for writers, but I could then come make specific collections specific to those things. And I could have on this one here, it could relate to problems for writers, but maybe it also, my personal anecdote deals with writer's block and stiff dialogue. And it may not just be problems for writers, but it also includes problems for writers. And you can see how I could create a bunch of different collections, kind of with differing ideas and different things where they all share a common element, right? All of these documents are all deal with problems for writers, but maybe I don't want to see all the problems for writers right now. I just want to see all the keywords that are assigned to writer's block. I'm specifically looking for information related to writer's block or stiff dialogue or whatever the case might be. And so you can see how really powerful that will be to keep all those things kind of separated, so you can find exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so it looks good. Yes, so Steve is saying in creative writing, very good to use for scenes where a particular character appears. Yes, that's another one of my favorite uses for collection is keeping track, of minor characters as keywords, and then kind of tracking them and just dropping. Okay, he appears here. He appears here. He appears here. He maybe appears in 5-10 scenes throughout the entire story, but I can see exactly where those scenes are at any time by just using that dynamic collection to find him and or her, wherever that character may be, right? So it's super duper handy. I absolutely love it. But you can see there's a lot of different uses for it, not just for tracking characters. Kathy says, how do you cause writer's block to yourself? Yeah, right. It's actually pretty easy to do. Pretty easy, to give yourself some writer's blocks. I was using it for fancy phrases I can't remember, like dialectics of memory or triumphal images. Yeah, that works too, Ivan. That works fine. You can drop in keywords like, hey, I don't know what that is. But there are a lot of, maybe your topic deals with a lot of those things. And so it's really for things, anything that you want to track, and it has like there's going to be a lot of documents kind of built around that concept or idea. And I know it's in the beginning, it's really hard to tell, when you're writing something, but let's say you identified the history of your problem. You went through and you wrote a bunch of that down. You might look through that thing and say, okay, what are some common elements here that I'm seeing a lot of, right? And maybe do some additional research on each of those things. You could apply those keywords to the notes. You could apply those keywords to documents that you've written in your manuscript. You could apply them to, they could appear in your trash too. Like they could be things that you've said, I don't need that anymore. But you could then have it all available to you in one location just to look at and say, okay, I remember writing that. Actually, I do want that. Let's move that back. Or, let me copy a section of that here and put it over here. It's more about accessibility, right? Keeping your tools, your content, and your research accessible to you in the most organized way you can possibly think of, right? And it's something that you get better with at time. You should not expect yourself to be like, hey, I'm going to be a master at this right now. This is really just getting you started, right? Pointing you in the right direction, say, this is how this tool works, this is how I can use it, and hopefully this will help you keep yourself organized in the future. Okay, well, I think I'm going to call that a wrap in terms of our presentation for today. Thank you guys. This has been a lot of fun. Real quick, before we close out everything, we do have some time for the Q&A here. So I'm going to quickly go over my last few slides, and then we'll open it up for the Q&A here, okay? So, let me save this here. Let me switch screens before I forget. Oops, no. Share. There we go. Too many buttons to click here. Q&A. Okay, yes, okay. And we'll get to your question, Ivan. I see that there. Bear with me. Okay, can everyone see that? Looking good? Okay, let's talk free resources. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to get access to that free starter novel template, go to ojevanson.com/links and download a copy of that. And I love connecting with you guys, so please, please, please reach out to me. I love to hear from you. I love to hear your ideas. I love to get feedback, too, and see how can I improve these presentations for you guys and just overall provide the best quality production I can. So, of course, if you're not already a part of my Turning Writers into Authors community, join me today by subscribing to my email list. And I would really appreciate that. I love connecting with you guys. So let's see here. Of course, we have our webinar library. We have our user forum. We have our user manuals, blog and video tutorials available to you at literatureunlocked.com and ojevanson.com/tools, and a full knowledge base. And I have sent out, I think, some emails to a few of you. I'm transitioning my whole email list over to Substack. That's how much I love Substack. If you haven't checked out Substack, I do recommend it. It's a great platform for writers. It's a lot of fun. And it also just makes emailing and getting out your information and your writing to others really, really simple and easy. So highly recommend that. Check that out. If you haven't, I am, like, right now, if you subscribe to my email list, continue to do so for my website. That's still probably the best way to do it. I haven't had too much time working on the Substack version yet. But eventually, I'll be transitioning completely over to Substack for ojevanson.com, and yeah, it'll be a lot better. I can already see that it's going to be really good. Okay, well, let's talk about what's next. I'm really excited about this. On Wednesday, June 26th, 2024, at 11 a.m. Central, 5 p.m. UK, we'll be discussing mastering Scrivener. Unlocking Scrivener's potential on an iPhone and iPad. And I saw there was someone earlier, I just saw it in passing, that they said they only use the iPhone or they only use iOS. So if that's you, if you're still here, I don't know, come join us on Wednesday. We're going to go into a deep dive into Scrivener. It is it is a streamlined version of Scrivener. It does have the core tools though, but functionality compared to the desktop versions is considerably different. There are some things that are similar, but how you go about doing it is quite different. So I'm excited to kind of go in through the ins and outs of creating, or rather of creating and writing in Scrivener on iPhone and iPad. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up. You can find that via the links there as well. Jen says that yes, iOS rocks. I agree. So last but not least, did I deliver? I know there was a lot going on there. Do you feel more confident with nonfiction writing and organization in Scrivener? I hope so. If not, that's okay too. Let me know, and we'll get some clarification here on what we can do to help you out, because I want to help you. That's what the Q&A is for. That's why I'm here to answer your questions. Anything I didn't hit in the webinar, I want to hit. And also, it will inform how I can improve this presentation in the future too. Oh, Kathleen, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed the webinar. That's great. Thanks. Gloria says, yes, much more confident. I'm a beginner. This was terrific. And says, yes, you delivered as always. Oh, thank you, Marilyn. Appreciate that. Oops. Just got kicked out of my presentation. Let's go back into there. Keynote, where are you? Perfect. Well, I appreciate that, guys. Good to rethink collections and outline are better. Good. Thank you, Gigi. Glad to hear that. So now is the time to ask your questions. Let's open the floor to everyone. I'm happy to address any questions, concerns, or confusion you have regarding Scrivener and its features, as well as provide you with tips and advice to get you effectively using it to get your writing done. So don't be shy. Ask away. Drop your questions in the Q&A. We'll probably spend the next 5-10 minutes looking at that, just depending on how many questions we have. And yeah, I'd hope to get a little bit more time, but we'll do our best. We'll do our best here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close that out. And let's see what questions we got in the Q&A here. So Ivan's asking, what about importing a full book or chapters of a PDF for research? Okay, so let's look at that. So right now, even though we're doing a nonfiction book, I don't have any nonfiction book examples, unfortunately, but I do have some, some manuscripts here that I could easily drag and drop directly inside, like so. So easiest way to bring in any document here, Ivan, is just to quickly drag, drop like this, right? Now, the disadvantage of a drag and drop like so is that you have one massive document now, in this case, 61,000 words, and and it's a lot to go through, right? So if I want to come through and break this up into sections, I'm going to have to scroll down, right? And this is not always a bad thing, guys. Sometimes a little bit slower is good. It allows you to get more familiar with Scrivener. Also allows you to kind of, let's see here, it wants to do all these different spellings. We don't want to learn it. We just want to split with selection as title. Okay, and then we could just do this one at a time, all the way down here like so. This would take a while though. I think you don't see my screen. Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. I appreciate that. There we go. Now you should be able to see that, right? Okay, let's redo that. Recap. Sorry, guys. So, once again, we'll go ahead and drag and drop this over like so. Okay, and there we go. There it is. Full manuscript all the way inside, right? And we scroll down. It's one single document. 61,000 words here. 61,000, almost 62,000 words. So I could go through and one at a time find each one and click. Split with selection as title. I don't know why it wants to change the name on that so badly. Split with selection as title. And I could go all the way through my manuscript like this and do that. Chapter by chapter, scene by scene, etc. and go through. And that's going to take a while. But like I said, it's not all bad. You can go and learn this, and you can get more familiar with your manuscript and get more familiar with Scrivener. But good news, if you're looking for a quicker way to do it, there is a quicker way. Okay, so I could come through here. I could actually come and I could select this same chapter here. I could come in here, open it up in Word, right? And I could go through, and you see I've already done it. I could go through wherever I want Scrivener to break to a new chapter, to a new scene, or whatever. I could just put this pound symbol here. I could, if I have chapters, I could find replace, and I could replace in the chapter there very easily, right? Or replace in the pound symbol there. And by so doing, I can then use this great tool in Scrivener where it allows me to split things up. So we go to File, Import, Import and Split. Let me show that again. File, Import, Import and Split. Okay, right there. And what that's going to do is open up this window here. Now you can see typically, actually, what I'll do is if I'm using a chapter, I know I can just have it separated as a chapter. But by default, Scrivener's going to have this pound symbol there. That's what's going to be there. So let's go ahead and go to Scrivener demo files. Let's find, I think we were in, was it fantasy? No, it was in manuscripts. I think we're using this one right here. Yeah. Import. And boom, there they all are, right? And they all got broken up, which is nice. Okay. Some of them I didn't do right, but that's okay. They didn't have anything in them anyway. So there we go. And that was a way to quickly and easily get those in, Ivan, just like that. Same with, PDF, things like that. If I had a bunch of PDFs I just wanted to bring in, I could just bring the whole folder in like so and drag and drop it in. And it'll bring all those PDFs in for me that I have and keep them organized and nice, which is handy, right? Now that's another thing we could do, but let me show you the chapter one too. We could actually just do, I actually really like it. If you use chapter everywhere, that's really handy. We could actually come here, go to File. Let's make our manuscript folder selected. File, Import and split again. This time we're going to separate by chapter, right? And I believe this one has chapters in it too. So it's the same story, but with chapters. We'll import that in. So we get a little bit different result, right? We have 1, 2, 3. You can see the chapter was removed, but we were able to get those in pretty quickly and all split up nicely. You can see where we're missing some things, stuff like that. So there we go. All the way down to chapter 37. We get all those in to our manuscript really quickly and easily. And usually what I'll do, you can see I have a part 1 here. I'll usually come through and put them in folders like so. Maybe the first like 10 chapters. And then kind of guess at the hierarchical structure. So it's a little bit cleaner to look at. Not so much struggle. Oops, part 2. Ideally, the more specific the names you can give them, the better. But it doesn't have to be perfect, right? The middle is quite a bit longer. So we'll do like 30. And then we'll do like Act 3, right? Or part 3. 3. There we go. And just move those over inside that folder like so. And that way it's a little bit cleaner, easier to look at, and I can kind of focus these at a section at a time like that. So hopefully that answers your question, Ivan, and get you settled away there. Let's see here. And let me look at our webinar chat and see if there's anything I'm missing here too. Ivan said this was super helpful. Same for dragging and dropping an entire folder. Good. I'm glad I could help you out with that. Yes, Kathy, it does delete the pound sign. That's true. It does delete the pound sign. And also, when I do the chapter too, you may have noticed it also deleted the chapter too. whatever it's you're replacing, that's what's going to get removed out by Scrivener. Yeah, that's true. Let's see. And says, and if it deletes, you cannot import out and in. I mean, you can't. I mean, Kathy, you can import it out. I mean, that's the whole purpose of our compiler here, right? So we can come here, we can compile it out, right? Again, yeah, it's not going to come. Ideally, it should come out of Scrivener looking a bit nicer than it came in. That's the hope anyway, right? But yeah, you could use the compiler to kind of get that out in any format, any way you want to. But yeah, it definitely is going to change, right? I mean, usually when I come in here, you can see I have chapter 1. I don't keep any of this in my Scrivener document at all. It's like, actually, I end up wanting just to come and delete this anyway. I come through and like, oh, I don't need this. Because ideally, what should happen is these titles should replace these, right? Because Scrivener can decide based on the format, so the structure of your document, what chapter 3 is, what chapter 4 is, what chapter 5 is, automatically. I don't need to tell Scrivener that. It'll look at the structure of my of my binder here, and it will determine the numbering for me. Yeah, so it's really nice. So Steve is asking, okay, yeah, well, okay, and so having to add a separator again. So ideally, you shouldn't even need the separator at all, Kathy. Ideally, I mean, you can for scenes and things. That's one nice thing about Scrivener too. If I come in here and say I went to Billionaire Buddies, I create this. This is actually the folder for Billionaire Buddies. Okay. So this is the chapter folder. This is how I like to structure things, okay? So I'll come here like that, open it up, That's been everybody's. This will be scene 1, right? And I could actually come down here. I could break up scene 1 into 2 different scenes. I don't know if there's 2 different scenes in this chapter. Oh, looks, there is. And this one is, I use the pound symbol. So since I use chapter, all my scene breaks are actually still preserved. My pound is still there. I like that. So I can actually come here. I can split with scene as title. And this is actually scene 2. And the cool part is that Scrivener also knows a scene break when it sees one. When a folder contains multiple documents like this in the manuscript folder, it'll know that this is chapter, we'll say chapter 1, 2, or like chapter 2, right? This is chapter 1. This will be chapter 2, and it'll say, okay, there's a scene break here, and oftentimes it'll even put this pound in there for you. Or, if you can specify what break you want to have there when you compile it out. But it'll put something there so you can, even if it's just a new line, so you can tell that, hey, this is a different scene. It kind of breaks apart from the other part. Yeah, Scrivener can do that, so that's kind of handy. So Steve is asking, what is the major difference between the manuscript and the binder? Well, the binder itself is this guy in the left sidebar here. Okay, it can have your collections. It can have it stores your manuscript folder, your research folder, your templates, your trash. Basically, everything kind of lives here. It's where the structure of your project lives. Okay, and so, yes, your manuscript folder lives in your binder, but it's not the only thing, right? If you think of it like an actual binder, right? Your binder can have multiple tabs. It can have multiple folders, so to speak, multiple documents, but they're separated and organized in different ways, right? In this case, in every Scrivener project, it's going to have 1, 2, 3 folders, ideally 4, because I love my template sheets. I always have that. So for me, these are my 4 main core folders. You'll never find a project that doesn't have a manuscript, a research, and a trash folder. You will find it without the template sheets, but typically these are the 4 folders I have in every single one of my projects: manuscript folder, research folder, template sheets, and trash. And each one of them perform a separate function. They keep things organized, they keep things going. And another important thing about the manuscript folder is that this is the only folder that gets exported out. So it doesn't matter if you've included things to compile in your research, in your templates, in your trash. These things will not compile out unless they're actually in the manuscript folder. So that's something to be aware of. If you want to export it out of Scrivener using the compiler here, it needs to be in that manuscript folder. Okay. Excellent, guys. Well, let's see here. Yep, no problem at all. There are ways to just export out documents one at a time like this, right? I can come here and I can print it, right? And directly from Scrivener, I can go to File, Export here, and I can just export the file out of Scrivener like that. It's not really compiling it because you're just taking one file and kicking it out of Scrivener, essentially, or copying it out of Scrivener. The compiler is where we stitch things together. We bring the whole manuscript together into one place, and that makes it cohesive so we can share it with somebody, not just a single document or file. Although you can see here, we can check and uncheck any number of files in our manuscript folder to be included or excluded from compile. Okay, well, great, guys. It's an excellent session. Had a lot of fun. Thank you all for coming. John says, I love the compiler. I agree. It's a great tool. Ivan said, I'd like to see part 2 of this webinar with more advanced use, such as default section types by structure, bibliography, and footnotes or endnotes. That's a good point. Thank you, Ivan. I'll definitely consider that moving forward. I think that'll be really useful for nonfiction writers. I agree. So I'll take that note, and I will tuck it away in here so I have that in here for me to remember. I like that. Boom. Paste. Oops, I didn't grab it. But thank you, everyone, for coming. I think I got it this time. Boom. There we go. I like that. That'll definitely be a good addition to our what this presentation covers in the future. And I'll take that one too. Thanks, GG. Appreciate that. See you all on Wednesday. Thank you all for attending. And you know what? Before I go, one last thing. I forgot to give you guys the actual what do you call it? Emails and things to reach out to us if you have any problems with any technical support problems. Let me just give it to you real quick. Okay, desktop 3, share, and of course, Keynote is going out. Yeah, there we go. So we can reach if you have any problems. And obviously we couldn't get to everything today. Anything you think of after the fact, you can reach out to Scrivener/Mac, Scrivener/Window, Scrivener/mobile, and scalpelliteraturelogic.com. Or you can, if you have any feedback for me, how topics you'd like to see for future presentations, things like that, reach out to me as well at contact@ogjevinson.com. We're happy to help you, and we're happy to get you the information you need. So please use the email addresses listed above and continue on writing, and I will catch you all next time.